Brooklyn Bomber in that second
Hey
attack.
guys, can you hear me?
No.
What?
We'll talk. Let's go switch over to the other server.
All right.
Yo, 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 yo. Yo, yo, yo. Good. Let me see. Okay. And where's the damn link? See, copy. Let me see. Elsku að minnst Ég er búinn að gera þetta Discord, ég er að fara að gera það á Facebook og Twitter núna. Það var ingen stækna. Við lókum fyrir, já. Ég bara... Já, ég bara láta ykkur vita. Það er live núna.
So guys, can you hear me properly? Am I to be heard? Should I sing until you respond to my voice? Da da da. Okay, so OBS. Okay, fine, good. OBS is detecting the voice, so that's good. We need to find the question channel. Please stop. Okay, I'm gonna I'm gonna honor the request that says please stop, if that's okay with the rest of you. Okay, not too many questions in here. I hope you guys have got some questions lined up for us though. What's this? So we're on the couch now? Yeah, I don't know why I'm sitting here. So, okay, sound works. Fantastic. Well, now. Let me see. Oh, I need my glasses for this. Oh. What's the time? Can you hear me if I speak in a normal voice? Yeah, probably. Let me see. Da da da. Yeah. It's registering. 2 minutes. Stupid 4K monitors. Can't make out what it says. Okay, maybe this is better. Okay, guys. So, it is just about time. My name is Aurelius. Most of you know me as Snookums, and I am Starborne's community manager. And beside me we have Kelly Óskarsson, who is Starborne's producer. And the way that we're going to do this today is that at first I'm going to go through all the questions that have been posted to Discord. And we're going to answer those questions first. And then Kelly is going to talk a little bit about what's happening in the coming months for Starborne and for the next alpha. And after that, I'm going to allow you guys just to ask the questions you want to ask. But we can hear you on Discord, so be mindful of that. That there's a delay on the stream from what we're saying until you guys can talk. Also, be mindful of do not crowd the chat. So because I'm old, I can't see very well on this 4K monitor, and I need to read the questions. So maybe you can mark your questions with a Q color or something. But okay, so let's just dive into this. You want to say hi?
Hello. I already waved.
You waved, okay. Okay, so the first question we have on on Discord, I mean, is from Grettir. Snookums, how does it feel to have done 700 missions? Are you going to do a forum post explaining the tactics? It feels absolutely fantastic. No, I don't know, but sure. I will make a post about how I did it. That's fine. No, it's not vodka, Texarten, this is just water. Let me see. The second question is from iMaple. Will the CA join The Voice? No. And how does it feel to have lost more times? He doesn't win his own game. I can't answer for him, but I'm pretty sure it feels not fantastic for him. He's a very competitive fellow.
He wants a pay-to-win button.
He wants the pay-to-win button, and we're fighting it very hard.
Yes.
From Insanity Sector app, any updates? He has needs. So maybe you want to take that question?
Can we repeat that question?
About the, are we getting the
mobile
apps?
Yeah.
Well.
Yes.
Yes. But hang on, let me just...
So, a few things there. We haven't started heavy development on it, but we have the people in place to do it, and we know what we want to do there. So I can't give you any exact dates on when it will be available, but what you can expect there is not a fully playable version. That's not what we're gonna aim for, at least not right now, but more of a companion app where people can get notifications of something that's going on. They can log in, they can edit their queues, so they can put buildings and ships into production. They can attach cards and do stuff like that, so they can sort of do, at the very least, sort of the minimum maintenance of their empire, and of course get notifications, for instance, if somebody attacks or, you know, sends you a message or whatever. So and that we aim to have that ready when we soft launch.
So basically we can do everything but the map, pretty much.
Yeah, but we will try to, there is sort of a gray zone in between of things that we could, where we could allow, for instance, you to do events to some extent. We can sort of fake it in the app. So we'll see how much we can get done there, but at the very least you will be able to update your stations and stuff like that.
Okay, fantastic. So next is Shadow Walker 6. If this game come in Android, it's going to be the first game that I'll install on my phone ever. I am not a phone game person, but this, yes. So not a question, Shadow Walker, but I guess you're just asking if it's coming to Android, and yes, it is.
Yeah, it will definitely be both for iOS and Android.
Yeah, somebody asked earlier if we were thinking about Windows Phone. I believe our tech artist Breeze said feasible, yes, likely, no. What are your thoughts?
I mean, we will start at least with iOS and Android and just take it from there. I mean, it's the same like having a Linux client. It's very feasible, but whether, I mean, it's not something that we are prioritizing, but it's definitely something that we can do if we have the breathing room and you know, if we don't have too many fires burning in the room.
Okay, now a question from Ruinous. Any plans to spice up the mid-late game of a phase? Seeing a bit of a drop-off in player activity as the round has progressed, will we see any events which require multiple players to participate in to complete? That's for you.
Yeah, so sadly I will have to answer the last part with a no. We have talked about it, but we don't have any immediate plans to have content that would where multiple players will have to cooperate to complete. I mean, it's of course something that we would love to have, but you know, we just feel there are other things that are more needed. I mean, we might, there's a possibility that we'll get in content that multiple players can participate in, but not where they will have to be cooperating on. So you know, if you see the difference there. For instance, we talked about, and this is just an idea, it's not something that is nailed down or anything, but one idea was to change the solar flares into basically being a pool of resources, and when you send an industrial to it, you just dip into the pool and take from it, and any player can dip into the pool until it is depleted. That's one example of it, but not where people would have to be cooperate. But on the other thing, it's actually a very interesting question, because this is actually a question that we came up internally for us after the last alpha, where we saw exactly this problem of lower engagement in the mid to late game, and we felt it was an issue of such importance that we felt we needed to address it as soon as possible. And we are actually working on several things right now, or this release that we're in right now.
So for the next alpha, you mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So in the next alpha, you will see several things that should combat this very thing, and you know, as I explained, I'll go into more details of them once you go gone through these questions.
Yeah.
So I'll tackle this more there. But yes, definitely we are aware of the drop in engagement and we want to address it.
Okay, so the next question is from Wani. I brought this up with Snookums, however, I have thought a bit more on the implications of my suggestion. With every attack there is fleet loss and the base damage and resources at the halt should have a debris from attacking fleet's destruction. Could we implicate a scavenger ship, debris platform and or a card for set action for industrial ships? So yes, I remember this conversation. So what Wani is talking about is that once a combat is completed, some ships are destroyed and there should be debris for players to pick up and to increase their resources. And he's just wondering if that's something we could want to do. So that's for you.
This is not something that is in our immediate scope, so I wouldn't expect this anytime soon. I mean, definitely not in the next alpha, for instance. But in general, I mean, a couple of things here. First, regarding the battles themselves, we want to make it much more visible on the map what's going on. So people are more aware that there are wars being fought and there are, you know, ships and stations being destroyed and all that. So we definitely want to improve the visibility and the awareness of big battles so that you can go on the map, you can zoom out and you can see where stations have been destroyed recently, where the biggest battles have taken place on the server and so on. So if we wanted to go do some sort of a scavenging or salvaging, it would sort of tie into that. It would allow people to see where there are sort of good pickings to be had, so to speak.
And the recent change of where industrialists don't participate in defensive combat, so they could just sit there and be ready for scavenging.
Exactly, and I mean, this can to some extent help with alleviating, you know, of course the very severe losses. If you're on the losing side, you can recoup some of your losses, so to speak. And it also ties into one other thing that we want to explore at some point, which is allowing you basically to upgrade your ships to different or basically give subtypes to your ships with cards that you attach. For instance, one example that we frequently talk about is you could put a ship, a card on the scout that would give it the science trait. So it's a science vessel. The card would be like a science lab or science bay or something like that. And then there could be, for instance, missions that require a science vessel to complete. But
we already have an example of this with the plasma harvester, which basically is something that provides the ship with a certain function.
Exactly. So functionality and mechanically speaking, this is very doable and sort of ties nicely into the whole narrative and all that. So I would say, in the long term, yes, we will definitely do this, but it's not coming in the next few months.
Okay, so here we have Klaus. So 60th question. Will there be a rebalancing to station defense? If so, what plans do you have for doing so? At the moment, mid-game warfare feels very much like trench warfare. Everyone hides in their stations until someone has overwhelming force, with the most offense conducted simply by aggressively settling stations, in my experience. So, trench warfare.
Yes, I think that actually is a fair assessment of where we are at right now. For those of you who have participated in more than one alpha, you sort of should realize by now that we are swinging the pendulum back and forth, trying to sort of find a good place to be. In previous alphas, one of the biggest issues we've had is the more experienced player or more advanced players harassing the lower level players. So we went sort of full Monty into giving players tools to protect themselves, to make themselves unappealing targets for these griefers, so to speak. I mean,
which I am not part of. I'm not me.
Yeah, I mean, the way we look at it is that we, of course, we don't want to, you know, we totally don't want people to make themselves immune to anything or like that. It's just how much of a deterrent you are. It's like if you're being chased, if you and your friends are being chased by a grizzly bear, it doesn't really matter how fast you run. You just have to make sure you run faster than your slowest friend, and that's the thinking here. But you know, the changes we made, for instance, to the Navy-based stats and the missile-based stats and so on, we probably swung a bit too far in how strong they are. So we're definitely going to scale it back a little bit. But of course, what makes the situation a bit trickier is, of course, the bug where outposts continue to participate even if they have been made in operational in the combat. That will definitely get fixed before the next alpha. And also what sort of makes the whole thing in a limbo, so that you can't really maybe address it well, is that we are missing the scout sabotage feature where outpost combat revolves around scout fleets rather than normal fleets.
That's going to really toss up the challenge.
That's going to add a completely new dimension to warfare, and when we implement that, we will be very mindful of trying to address this imbalance that is in the combat right now.
Okay, so Kitona asks, can we have a Darth Vader version in Starborne? So I'll just explain why he's asking that. It is because of this beautiful Darth Vader doll that we have here. So that's why he's asking that question, and we'll just not answer it and go on to the next question. DiPierre asks, wait, is that DiPierre? I don't know. Anyway, do buildings that give bonuses to surrounding hexes like Stargates work for just the one who builds it, or could domain players use it to provide faster access to front lines to alliance bases? So actually they do work for anybody who's coming to that station. You, right now, our outposts aren't supposed to work for your allied members, like the defensive outposts aren't supposed to defend your allied stations or allied outposts, but the Stargate, it doesn't do that either. If you have your Stargate next to your station and an allied station, it's not going to speed up to both stations. It only works on your stuff. But anybody who's deploying to your station will get the Stargate benefits. So you can quickly reinforce and defend your friends. Next question is from Bach. The gameplay is expected to have changed considerably in final version compared to that already implemented. And please speak a little slower. Okay. So he's asking if the gameplay is expected to change considerably in the final version. Yes, it's going to change a lot. Like the sabotage ability for scouts is going to completely change the dimension of combat. The victory conditions are going to change the way you view the land around you, the available spaces. The collaborative tools of building a megastructure with your alliance is going to change the way you behave, and the way that we want players to focus into certain roles within an alliance, like a bomber guy, an offensive guy, a defensive guy, an industrialist, a spy master. These are all going to be pretty visible in the oncoming alphas, and they're going to change things a lot. Right now it's quite bare bones, and the victory condition that we do have, the most points, is kind of lame, to be honest. And it's not going to be that way. It's going to be, you have to plan for the future. Matjat, he thinks that it's fine the way it is. Obviously, one of the top 30s. Kitona asks, are there any planned changes to the station buildings themselves? I would not expect them to remain completely unchanged for the remainder of the game. For example, we have yet to introduce new mechanics and new effects, so I'm pretty sure that we're going to have some buildings that affect these things.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and the buildings, same as everything else, we've been tweaking them throughout the alphas and will continue to do so. So I would not expect any huge swings. The building paths are getting to a place where we're pretty happy with them, but there definitely will be some shifts here and there and some stat changes of exactly how much benefit you get per level, or how much the cost is per level, and so on.
Alrighty. Diablo Spawn asks, how can you cancel trade agreements with someone, and why can't I get a second station trade post to trade with someone? So I will be happy to answer those questions on a personal level in game. I don't know what you mean by trade agreements, and I don't know the reasons why you can't build a second station. We'll maybe check that out later. One E says, awesome. I expect he's referring to me. Grinders, are there any plans to take freighters and turn them into persistent trade routes? Tell your freighters to constantly deliver X amount to goods to Y a station.
Maybe.
Yeah, this has been brought up actually.
Yeah, and the main thing is that we are not all that happy with the current trade system, and we actually have time slated next release, which will happen before the next alpha, to work a bit on the trade system and improve it. We are still discussing a bit exactly what to do with it. There are several things to consider there, so I can't go into too many details, but you can, at the very least, you can expect trade to work significantly differently in the next
He was actually
alpha.
talking about freighters, so if I'm freighting resources, that I can like repeat this maneuver several times.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, I misunderstood the.
Right.
At this point, we are not planning to allow you to have repeated freighting routes.
I believe Grettir at the time was thinking about wanting to have people be able to do that like 2-3 times if they paid for VIP services.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not too fond of that. I mean, I'm fine with there being a good support for those wanting to be premium members, but I dislike them having like better UI or something like that.
Yeah.
I always hated that when games do that.
Me too, actually. So, yeah. Okay, so Kitano asks, what do you think of the idea to apply a penalty for attacking players based on a level difference between attacker and defender? Personally, I haven't thought about it before. We've seen some games that are in the MMORTS genre that have a version of this system where you can only attack within your class range or level range, and what it does, it divides up the belt board, so you'll have this certain member of people, like these people here that cannot attack with each other and these can engage with each other, and it's not very board game like, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I'm actually, my opinion on this is pretty harsh or hardcore. I of course come from EVE Online, where I worked on that game for a long time, for 16 years, and our philosophy there was always that make the game feel unsecure, and then people will seek security in other players, and that's what we want to do.
Absolutely. So we want people to defend each other.
Yeah. The key to success in this game is the social aspect. You need to find a good group of people to play with, and that's how you defend yourself, and that's how you protect yourself.
Okay. That being said, when we launch the game, the servers, you won't be around people who are far beyond you in the game, and you won't be joining a server that's already very old. So you'll always be within range of other players anyway. But I know you talked about the level, but I wanted to get that point out there as well. So, wait, what happened here? Did I click something? How trade works? Okay, you guys are typing too much. Wait, and where was I? Grinders, other players to freighters, Kitono. Yes, okay, so here I am. Uncredible. I feel at the moment you need too many daily logins to manage your empire well, mostly because the buildings queue can only hold 2 builders at a time. Having not been able to log in for a few days and falling behind on managing my empire, I don't really feel incentivized to continue playing, and it's a headache trying to start up new stations. Do you recognize that as being a problem, and are there any plans to fix that with the mobile client? Absolutely.
Other than with the mobile client.
Yeah, absolutely. So what you're experiencing now is a side effect because we're generating IPs, like infrastructure points, way too fast. We're doing that because we want to further the alpha game to a state where we can at least try out the beginning of the middle game. We're actually going quite further than that because we're getting access to the heavy and capital ship assemblies very quickly. But yes, we want to allow you to not have to log in as many times a day. One of the things we can do there is you said beside the mobile app. But the connectivity does matter in the game. We will not ever be able to remove that because it is a real-time game. However, having not so many stations to plan for and maybe cars that allow you to have extra queues, that might be a way to go. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I mean, we will implement better features for increasing the number of queues you have on a station. So that's one option for players that have limited time or want to, want to spread their play time a bit more. Then they can try to acquire those cards and have longer queues, which allows them to log in fewer times. So and that definitely will be in the game soon.
Okay, Kitono, you got that right. Okay, that's fantastic. I got something right. Okay. Also, any plan changes for weaker outposts such as Stargate? I would have to disagree with that statement. I believe the Stargate is one of the best outposts in the game. I think I built it at every station. So, no, there are no specific plans for changing the Stargate.
Yeah, but I mean, if you talk about outposts in general, personally, I feel the scanner and the fortress need a little bit of love. So we'll definitely look into what improvements we can make to at least those two specific ones.
Yeah, I agree. Those two need some happiness. Diablo, how big of a backlog do you have of bugs and suggestions?
It's very big, and it's almost a full-time job culling it and combining it and making some sense out of it.
I believe that the submission form is around 500 suggestions and bugs right now. So
yeah,
but many of them are duplicates, of course, and I will cull it and make it sweet before I present it to my producer. Kitono asks, can you give us an idea of how many submissions for bug suggestions? Okay, just did that. Will you provide any availability to convert extra labor into resources of ship speed or something? So we used to have so much labor early game and it's wasting. So that's for me a little bit of a hint that you should be making more ships. We used to have, in the orders tab, the slider where you can change labor into resources. We used to have it both ways, where you could change resources into labor and labor into resources. And we didn't like it. It just meant that all you did all day long was to move that slider on every station just to maximize your output efficiency.
It was too much micromanagement.
Way too much micromanagement. It was frankly quite boring gameplay. And it kind of broke the labor speciality thing as well. So no. Deluxe asks, are you done with the game assets like ship classes, outpost, or are there more to come?
Well, the models for most of the stuff is in, but we are still working on the texture work for it. The textures that are currently in on the models are just very bare rudimentary ones. You can expect to start to see much more beautiful assets next alpha. And then there are a few special outposts missing. There are 3 special new ones that we are planning, but we'll just have to see at what point we'll add them to the game.
There's also coming like little models for the lines where you're harvesting. If you go to the resource mode, you see lines from your station and from the mining facilities and the mining colonies to the resource axis and planets and moons. So those are going to be populated with some models like little busy robots doing stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. We are doing things like that to sort of liven the map up a little bit. We definitely want to make the game feel a little bit more alive on the map. So we're doing small things like that. And then one other thing that is not yet in the game are what we call phenomena, which are basically space phenomena, like black holes and spatial rifts and you know,
The
plastic.
cool sci-fi stuff.
Yeah, and so that's also something that we are in the process of working on. And then finally, of course, we are also working on adding the fully fledged portrait system. I mean, right now we all just have a fixed portrait, actually 2 of them, one in the corner and one in your profile. It's not the same
So
one.
you can decide your gender.
Yeah. But in the next alpha, we will have the first iteration of allowing people to choose their own avatar. And then we will expand upon that to have them, you know, a lot of different kind of variations that you can collect by playing the game.
DPR asks anything about redesigning how trade works. Yes, we have covered that already. Trade will be completely overhauled before the next alpha, or yeah. So in the next alpha, I expect to see something different. Deluxe asks, it was mentioned that there will be multiple games running at any given time. Will there be different types of games? If so, what kinds? So these are things that are quite common with these kinds of games, with the MMORTS games. And I wouldn't expect too much variety when we go to open beta. But as we develop our game, as we get it to a point where we like it, we will start experimenting with size of boards, with the game time length, etc. So absolutely, yes. Matjar asks, will there be more spaceship than we got now with more specialized tasks? Short answer, yes. Long answer, I'm not exactly sure that I'm allowed to tell you exactly what. But absolutely, yes. We expect more and different types of ships. I wouldn't expect 10 or 20 more, but at least a couple. Wani asks, can we get a warp gate for combat fleets so we can quicken the response for defensive bases, i.e. defense fleets? That's what the Stargate is for, so you already have it. But a warp gate, no, it would break the time of the game. So probably not. Deluxe asks, what other things will be available for real money? Is there going to be an effort to prevent this from being labeled as a pay to win? I know this is a tough question. So that's for you.
Thank you. Wow, I mean, it's a big topic. I could probably spend half an hour talking about it. I mean, the reason it's so tough is because it's so subjective. I mean, everybody's understanding of what is pay to win is so vitally different. It's a huge spectrum everywhere from people feel that anything beside vanity items is pay to win to, you know, up to a lot of tolerance for things. So we're trying to find a sweet spot where the majority of people would be happy, because this is something that we of course absolutely want to avoid. In an ideal world, we would want to have a game where we could only have vanity items as the only thing that we monetize, but sadly we just don't have the asset production capability to really do that. So but we are keeping sort of a few rules of thumbs that we feel is important to have to keep away from the to not have the game pay to win. And a couple of the most important ones is one that you should never be able to buy something that you can't get in the game also. And that absolutely is something that we will stick with. Whatever you can buy, you can also acquire by just playing the game, like doing missions, completing achievements, stuff like that. Secondly, it's that you can never there are several things that we will never want people to be able to buy directly. For instance, resources or commodity cards, because these are things that we feel are important to gauge the progress of players. You know, the amount of resources you have and the commodity cards, they control how fast you can progress in the game, and infrastructure points as well, and so on. And these are important tools for us to have to make sure that people will progress at a certain pace regardless of how much money they spend. Yeah, so there are several things like that. Also, not allowing people to buy directly exactly what they want, rather they buy randomized items but then have a crafting system where they can get exactly what they want. So it's things like that we rules like that we try to maintain, and we feel if we do this well, most people should be happy where it's at, and of course that whatever sort of additional functionality you can get through cards or things like that they should be more focused on convenience and like time saving stuff and stuff like that, rather than something that makes you immediately more powerful. I mean, we talked earlier about having more building queues. That's a very good example of this, because you don't automatically become more powerful just by having more building queues. It just allows you to manage your time a bit better. So we definitely want to emphasize those kinds of things as what you can be acquiring through the stuff that you get.
Okay. Kitono asks, no limitations on attacking players, just penalties, i.e. less applied offense. So that's not a question. Maybe you can reframe it and ask again. Grinders, will there be different win conditions on different servers? Build a megastructure in one, deploy in another, build things. So this is something we've discussed, and I believe you were thinking about at least we don't want the game's result to be known before it's over. So we're probably going to have some sort of randomized mechanic that doesn't come into play and isn't known to players until the end game actually starts beginning. So you can prepare for all sorts of eventualities, and then you're hit with the RNG, and you have to adjust to that a little bit at least.
Yeah,
but
I mean, there will always be sort of a core element to what contributes to winning the game, but we want to throw a few sort of hidden things in there to keep people from being able to see long before the server ends exactly who is going to win or whatever. That things can adjust slightly with hidden things coming into effect that will modify the win conditions a little bit.
It won't be so that like you've prepared for the win and you're in a good position and you're just ruined. It's just going to be a slight shift in one direction or another, and people will just have to adjust, and there will be time to adjust. Okay. DPR says, I think we rely way too much on stations and not enough on outposts. I would have to disagree with that, basically. Yeah, in this game, because of the points, yes, but that's not how the game is designed. It won't be. But outposts are what makes you powerful and makes your stations good. So I just simply disagree with that statement, and it's not a question. Are you guys going to fix font at 1080p resolution? I was just discussing this earlier. I was telling the people that I was an old man and I can't read the planner numbers anymore. So yes, we're probably going to change it a little bit. At least give players options to customize it.
We need a younger players.
We need younger players. So you old guys have to stop playing. Wait, don't tell my boss I said that. Stargates are awesome. Thank you, DPR. Diablo Spawn. When does this alpha end? And when will the next alpha start? So we just finished week 4 today. We have 4 weeks to go, and then we're done. And the next alpha is scheduled for the end of August, beginning of September?
No, 1 month later. End of September.
End of September, start of October. Okay. DPR. One way you can improve scanners is by not making every station visible to everyone. Should have a fog of war. Would also reduce load times. So yes, fog of war is something we discussed. We like it, but I would not expect it before we go to open beta. Diablo Spawn for okay. Kitono, maybe add capability to block spying with scanners. Okay, that's a fine idea. DPR, will there be a reason to look for missions away from immediate area like deep space exploration or regional unique events? So maybe you want to discuss snowflake missions?
Yeah, I mean, that's not something that's going to be in the next alpha, but we hope to add it sometime after that. But yeah, I mean, the mission system we have right now is basically just the baseline generic system that we felt was a good iteration to just have a bunch of generic stuff out there. But we're definitely looking into having more what we call snowflake missions, which are more specific missions. Some of them will be player specific, but others will be public, like missions are right now. And they would be the way we want to implement the public ones is that there only spawns a limited amount of them per week, and players get a more larger scale hint on where they're located, like they're located somewhere in that direction, so that it will take you a bit more time to sort of work your way towards where it is. And those players that manage to finish those very special missions, they will be celebrated through rankings or achievements and stuff like that to give them a little bit of a EP factor.
Deluxe says, I think that preventing people from buying specific cards in packs might reduce the perception of becoming pay to win. It is a question I'm getting from my community. For the record, I want you guys to be successful. Thank you, Deluxe. And yes, we will probably be removing the bundle options where you have access to specific cards.
We will remove them.
Yeah, we will remove them. See? There you go. I want a Titan. Oh, god damn it. Is that coming? Says Grettir. So that's Grettir. He's the CEO. And he's just sneaking in questions here to be annoying. No, but it's a good question. He wants a Titan. So the CEO wants a Titan, so that's a big hint for the rest of you guys. Arnold, I want the game to feel more alive. Can we get walking in stations? So that's an obvious Eve player question.
We've already started work on the captain quarters. And it's got a great door.
Great door. So Runos asked, would there be any progression round to round, like some perks gained to help you start a new round and give you a slight advantage, perhaps tied to how well the player lines did in the round? Yes, but it will only be a slight late game advantage, not the early game. 19 asks, I heard that you can walk into Station Eve online soon. Thank you, different game. Holy Brian, question, are there any plans for in-game mini-games that will take 1 to 2 minutes waiting for times of fleet to return and building to finish?
We have actually talked about this, and we actually wanted to implement the events and missions to be a bit more mini-game like. It's just a question of throwing resources at it. I would not expect...
He means company resources, not in-game resources.
Yeah. It's almost certainly not something that's going to happen before open beta, but who knows what happens after that.
Absolutely. So Incredible, and we're going to wrap this up on Discord after these 2 questions. Incredible, by the way, I think the middle game is a little bit too strong now. Is there really no reason to build around your starting HQ anymore? Any way to rectify that? That's the middle, not middle game, sorry, yes. So he's talking about map balancing. The map is kind of the hardest thing to get right, and we are continually evolving our maps, and you can expect that the map in the next alpha will be changed in some direction, perhaps not significantly, but we're always working on the map, the density of the players, and how we distribute resources. Ginger says, please remove the plat store in the game other than your one-time single. I suffer from dyslexia and got really excited watching Snooping opening caches. I had to get my own and spent over $50. Okay. I was under the impression that we would get to use the plat purchase for each alpha, and then again the full game was released. It was expensive 8 weeks of gameplay. Okay, Jinxner, so fair enough. We did put up the warning to allow people so that they would understand that if they spent the plat, that it would be spent. This is of course just an alpha. This is not how we're gonna keep it. You know, eventually the store is going to buy stuff, you use it for that game. But the plat is stored per account. So if you don't spend your plats, and I believe there are changes to plats coming, but we'll discuss that later, then you have the plats in your account indefinitely. And the final question from Discord, any plans for having exploding stars that destroy stations? That's quite a specific question.
What we want to do, I mentioned phenomena earlier, and we will implement them in 2 stages, or 3 if you want to go to. But basically the first iteration is just going to be visual, so we're going to add, like, there's going to be a black hole here and a spatial rift or whatever over here. but it will have no in-game effect apart from being a landmark, adding to the terrain, helping people. It gives landscape to the map and help people orientate themselves, which is also something that we've noticed, that people sometimes have a hard time sort of orientating themselves where they are, where their friends are, and all those. We want to get phenomena in to help people sort of get a feel for how the sort of the landscape of the map is. The next step after that is to actually give mechanical effects to the phenomena so that they can have some effect on the map, so it can slow or speed up movement, or have effect on combat, like make some certain firepowers more or less useful and stuff like that. So we might not have exactly exploding stars, but we definitely will have the idea with the phenomena is that they can randomize. There can be a randomized effect that they can have on the surrounding area that can be both beneficial and also detrimental. So.
Okay, so that's it for the questions on Discord for now. I'm going to give Kelly the word for a few minutes, and he's going to discuss what's going to happen in the upcoming alpha.
Yeah, so we have, of course, a bunch of plans for the things that we want to be working on for many months ahead, but I'm going to focus on the next few months, the next 3 months or so, basically the work that we're going to do before the next big alpha. I didn't have any like prepared spiel on this or anything, so I sort of just go over it semi-randomly. So one thing we're adding new types of cards, special cards that come in mission caches, that people can use to sort of we can call them convenience cards, like I mentioned earlier when we were talking about the monetization. It's to have stuff that people use to you know, for the gameplay to be more convenient for them. So those are cards that you can use to get various benefits within the game. As I mentioned, these drops from the mission caches, so or basically the same caches that drop from missions that you get from the store, so they can be gotten in either way. An example of these is cards that allow you to exchange resources. One feature that we are adding is that allows you to exchange one resource on a station with another resource on the station, for instance exchanging metals into gas or crystals into metal or whatever,
Ratio.
At a ratio, and the default ratio is unfavorable. It's 3 to 1, but you can, if you use a card, you can exchange them at a 1-to-1 ratio.
Is there a 2-to-1 ratio as well, Carl?
No, there's not a card that does it, but one of the things we've talked about, but it's not nailed down, is that if the station has a trade post, then the default ratio is 2-to-1.
Ah, okay.
Well,
that's fantastic.
Yeah, but
I like that.
Maybe a quick disclaimer. Everything I'm talking about is, of course, subject to change. These are things that we are implementing, or are in the process of implementing, so there's always a chance that things will change a little bit. But other examples of a card one we feel is very exciting is mercenary cards that you can use to help you with your fleet events. It won't allow you to get, it won't increase the number of fleet events that you get, but it allows you to control a bit better when and how you complete them. So you can use a mercenary card to speed up the pending time of a fleet event, to even to the point of making it active immediately. And then you can also use them to complete an event, which you can then do without having to send an actual fleet and wait for it to arrive and complete it. So, but if you use a mercenary card to speed up the pending time, the amount that you speed it up by gets added to the pending time of the next event after. So if you're using this to you're basically pulling events towards you, and if you imagine events being sort of knots on a string, you're sort of pulling the knots towards you, but it then extends the time between one event and the next one, so you'll never get more knots on the string.
The string is finite, and the number of knots is finite.
Yeah, but this will be very helpful. For instance, in you're playing, you're going to sleep. You know that the short time events that will happen over the night, you're not gonna you're gonna be asleep then. But you can then use these mercenary cards to activate those events, do them, and then just go to sleep. Sure, it will the pending time for the next event will be increased, but you'll be asleep then anyway. So it allows you to basically complete events more quickly and also more conveniently. For instance, a very frequent tactic right now is to drop the claim on because events only spawn on objects like planets and moons and so on. And people are dropping claim on it to make sure that events are not, so they can control where the events are spawning. There will be less need for that with this, because if the event spawns very far away from you, you can just use then a mercenary card to complete it.
So this is one of the effects that we're doing to help you manage your time in the game. Because right now we realize Starborne is very time consuming, especially if you want to play at the top tier. And we are addressing these issues, and this is one of those features.
Yeah, and so as I say, I mean these are of course sensitive areas to be playing around with, because some people will definitely regard them as pay to win to some extent, but again I emphasize that you're never getting more events through this. You're just controlling better what events you are capable of completing. And again, of course, everybody can get those cards by just doing missions and stuff. So yeah, I think that's enough of. And yeah, so there are several of these cards coming in.
Victory conditions?
Yeah, so we are doing the first iteration of the end game system, and it's very rudimentary in its first iteration. It's basically and actually I want to describe it in the narrative terms, because that's something that is a bit lacking in the game right now, and
nonsense. I tell them lots of stories.
So we, the players, we are entering virgin territory that has been charted by Earth and the powers back at Sol as territory that they are interested in colonizing in the long term. But we are sort of there to set up the ground rules. And so what the powers at Sol are interested in are terraformable or terra compatible planets that where they can start sending people to colonize with very little cost and effort, basically, where the atmosphere and gravity and those kinds of things are
Class M planets.
Yeah, whatever.
I'm a bit of a Star Trek nerd.
Yeah, so these planets, which basically is what you now know as grand terrestrial planets, are the ones that meet those requirements. So they are really important to control. So we call it strategic hexes, which basically means that a player claims a strategic hex if he has, if he claims it with a station of his. If the hex is contested, then nobody controls it. But if a player has a control on a strategic hex, then his alliance gets basically one control point or strategic point for the determination of which alliance is winning, which basically means which alliance will the powers at Sol look at favorably and say, oh yeah, you guys are really doing a great job at finding colonizable planets. We're gonna, shower you with gold and
So it's basically you gotta find more Earths and control them at the end of the game.
Yeah. So and this basically is the first iteration where it's sort of a very, very simple, straightforward mechanic. You get one control point for having a claim on a strategic hex, and it's basically just a competition between alliances to control the most strategic hexes. Later on, we will expand on this by basically having variable control point amount of strategic hexes based on various things, such as how much claim you have on the hex, if you have special outposts that modify the...
So you can increase the points you get out of the...
Exactly.
Okay.
And
But that's not for the next alpha. Next alpha is just going to be 1 point per planet.
Yeah, that's the next alpha. And you know, there are all kinds of wrinkles that we're gonna also add in there, but I think that's enough for now on that. So that falls under the hat of what we call sort of alliance goals. It was mentioned earlier that people felt there, or somebody felt that there was a bit of a lack of mid and long-term goals in the game, and we are addressing that on two fronts, so to speak. One is the alliance goals front, which is basically things that alliances together can start to focus on and start strategizing about and things like that. And this is the first step there. We are also, another thing that we are also going to be working on for the next alpha there is just the general structure of alliances. We want to improve the social tools in you know, have some rudimentary role system, so it's not all on the leader, have just a better visibility and better, just improved tools for people to organize themselves and socialize. So you can see definitely be an iteration on that, and that falls under the alliance goal hat. And the other hat is player goals, which is basically things that you as an individual player can start to work towards and have basically as a goal or a carrot for you to chase. We talked about snowflake missions earlier. That's one thing that we're doing there, but those are not coming in the next alpha. What we're going to do for the next alpha is basically roping in, making the NPCs more interesting and more important on the map, and with sort of gating the content of your progress a bit better. So right now, like Snookers mentioned earlier, we are giving players very easy and early access to the heavy ship assembly and capital ship assembly, for instance. But what we're going to do is to not give players automatic way of acquiring those cards. They will not be craftable. They will not be something that you can
You'll have to work for them.
Yeah, you have to work for them, and that's where the NPCs come in. Basically, we're adding the generic functionality that if you fight an NPC, you'll get a loot cache in addition to, of course, getting rid of the NPC and being able to rate them. So right now, NPCs are not in a great state because they have sizable defenses, and sure, if you defeat those defenses, you can rate them, but usually it's just better to rate inactive players around you. So we want to sort of get NPCs to a state where they're sort of in between rating and rating and the mission activity, or getting a bit of both. So if you fight an NPC, you can of course unlock that you can start rating him for a time, but you also get a mission or a loot cache of cards. But then we will there will be very special NPCs on the map that will be sprinkled around and marked very specifically, that will have really strong defenses that will respawn immediately, so that and if you manage to defeat those NPCs, then there will be two types. One that will drop the heavy ship assembly card, and the other that will drop the capital ship assembly card. So those will be the ways to unlock those cards, but they will be set up in such a way where you will have to build a sizable force before you can defeat those NPCs. So that then becomes a goal for you to build enough force to be able to defeat those NPCs and steal the ship assembly technology from them.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and we will then later on expand also on that with with the other, I mentioned earlier that we want to make more sort of unique outposts, and this will be, and they will follow similar path. Maybe not always the NPC one. It could be special missions that you have to do. For instance, you know, like I mentioned, the science vessel that you have to. There might be a chain of events that you have to complete, and then at the end you will unlock something like a special outpost. And this is something, of course, that players will see very quickly in their station planner. They will see these unique buildings, and they will get indication of what they need to do to unlock these buildings, so it becomes like a carrot for them.
Absolutely.
And that is something that is going to carry on into the mid and late game. The heavy ship assembly and the capital ship assembly is something that we don't want people to get access to too soon. I mean, it's happening much faster in this alpha, for instance, than it is intended to do in the final game. So yeah, these are the steps we are taking in that regard. We already mentioned that we're gonna redo the trade system. We're gonna take a look on the alliance systems and the social communication tools. And also mentioned that you're getting in portraits in the next alpha. You'll be able to choose a portrait at start. It will only be that in the next alpha. You'll be able to choose your appearance at the start from, you know.
Deluxe says he wants a Snookums portrait.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's probably.
Yeah, I think
pretty much it.
I think that's the gist of it. I mean, there are of course a lot of other tweaks, and you can expect tweaks to the cards and the buildings and.
Okay, so to recap, we've got mercenary cards coming. We've got trading your own resources within a station. We've got victory conditions coming on the map. We've got the portraits.
Yeah.
At least some of them. I can't guarantee a portrait of me, and I feel kind of vain talking about it. So maybe you guys that are with us in chat on Discord would like to voice some questions. There's a slight lag, so we'll sit here. You're supposed to be still. Damn it, we practiced this.
I was asleep.
So fine, no questions. So if you guys have any questions more, you can just, there's a lot of chatter here, it's hard to go through them. Maybe you can just copy paste them again on either Discord or on, I'm also reading it on the YouTube thing. Okay, Kitono, fire away your question, buddy. Can we do the freeze thing again?
You do it, you're really good at it. You should be more often like this at work.
I would pay up to $10 for a Snookums portrait. Well, then absolutely, we'll have to do it.
And there is a question there from Tech Sergeant. There, go down.
Down, he says.
No,
Here.
there, yeah.
Okay, this one. Okay, and okay. So Kitona's got a question. What kind of alliance benefits will there be? Great company. I don't know.
So we have several plans down the road. I'll mention a couple of them, but first, neither of those are gonna get into the next alpha. I mean, the first iteration we need to do is just strengthening the basics of the alliance system. Just, you know, having some basic roles so that more than the leader can be kicking and inviting people in. Just have a more robust system. It's very fragile and right now, which explains many of the bugs that have been coming up with it. And also just more visibility to it, like have links. Right now it's very hard to get any information about alliances, and also more visibility on the map, that you'll be able to see better the alliances on the map, much clearer color coding.
I've got a question as well.
And hopefully,
Sure.
and hopefully we'll be able to get in that you will get more.
Voice chat
paint
question.
options.
Okay, question, Holy Brian. Give it.
How long did it take before you guys developed this game? How long are you busy with this? Like in years?
So the question is, wait, can you talk again? I don't know. Repeat the question. I don't know if I'm turning this up or down. Oh, it's definitely up. So he's asking how long have we been developing the game? The company started in very late 2013. Some beginning work starts in the early 2014, and the real production starts in 2015. So we've been more like almost 2 years, but in the last couple of maybe 6-8 months, the team has grown. There's more programmers, there's more art people, and so the velocity has increased tremendously in the last year or so. And then this question from TexAgent: please talk about defending alliance members and notices that they are being attacked. Not enough fleets to station scout at every. Okay, so I'm not sure. This is not a question, so so I guess you want to be able to see when your friends or allies are being attacked. One thing that will help with this is that the neighborhood watch, as we call it, that is around your capital right now, and allows you to see hostile movements coming or going from hexes within 25 hex radius of the capital. This functionality is going to be extrapolated onto all stations that you have. So all stations that you have will eventually have a neighborhood watch that will allow you to watch closer what's happening around you. It won't allow you to see what's happening to an ally that's on the other side of the map, and I also don't think that's applicable.
Oh, this is so much delay on the stream, man. I asked about how long have you been busy developing the game?
Yeah.
Like from the start.
Yeah, I covered that question. Maybe it's still coming. One question here from Robert De Angelis. How do we book up for the next alpha? There is no way to book it in advance. You will just have to join it when we send out the email. It's best to pay attention on Discord. I will let everybody know sooner. Discord gets to know everything first. That's just the way it is. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook and you will be notified. What about too many stations that don't have IP rate? I was wrong. I want to go trading with other NPC. No, there will not be trading with NPCs, Madiat. Thanks for all your hard work, Elf. You're welcome. What does snookums mean? Asked Douglas Wilson. Is it like phlegm? No, snookums is a term of endearment, which I chose when I was 20-something as my online name, and I've just stuck with it. If an alliance wins, what do they win? Well, they do carry some perks between games that will help you in the end game of the next game. Will there be ways for alliances to specialize? No, not really. It's just the way for players to specialize within an alliance.
Maybe a quick thing on the alliance win.
Yeah.
We have talked about a badge system, where or basically a medal system where players can earn medals, and of course, being in a winning alliance on a server will be a very very prominent medal in that regard, but it's of course only for sort of status purposes. But there could also be vanity items like special portraits or special backgrounds in portraits or stuff like that, so that you can basically showcase how awesome you are.
Klaus has a question. Do you have plans for rebalancing the Empire-wide fleet limit system? While it does make sense, it is very hard to regularly run missions while also using industrial fleets across your empire and waging a war, even if you properly utilize the hangar system to free up some fleet slots. Even with 1 or 2 military stations, you feel like you never have enough Empire-wide fleet slots. So, of course, we are always looking into the balance of the game. The game is just at an alpha stage, and we welcome any good criticism on that. However, I personally feel that starting with 16 fleets is adequate. If you look at the in-game scores, I am doing missions quite sufficiently. Even maybe I'm doing them too much. I am still able to. I only had like 2 industrial fleets for the majority of the game. I have 3 now. So, and they're tending to my entire empire, and they're doing enough. They're even running plasma missions. However, I was building I was also raiding with 4 or 5 fleets, and I had 4 or 5 defense fleets. So I don't think there's cause for much change there at present time. Not in my opinion. What do you think?
No, absolutely not. I mean, I even contemplated a couple of alphas back to reduce it to 12 as the basic number.
That will make Klaus happy.
Yeah, just because an important element in this game is basically the specialization you make through the choices you make in what kind of fleets you want to be running. And yes, the game is set up in such a way where I mean, the fleets basically is like the number of actions that you have, and you have to figure out what kind of actions you want to focus on. And sure, you can dabble and do a little bit of everything, or you can be really specialized, and that's what we want to be emphasizing in the long term, is that alliances group together where each alliance member has a very specific role within that alliance, where it's not like everybody is spying and everybody is defending and everybody is attacking and everybody is bombing. It's that people have very specific roles. You know, there's a guy that is the scout master and the spy master. He has huge scout fleets and he goes and recons everything, and maybe goes and sabotages some key outposts of the opponent and so on. Then there is the offense guy who he has the hammer. He comes in and wipes out the defenses of the opponent. And then there's a bomber guy who comes and bombs everything to shit once the hammer guy has finished his job.
Bombs it to what?
To shit.
To shit. Okay,
Yes.
just want to make sure I heard that right.
and then the defender guy who will help reinforcing threatened sectors and so on. So we definitely will want to maintain a fairly strict limit to the number of fleets that you can run, so that players feel a real need to figure out, okay, what kind of game do I want to be running, and this also comes into why, for instance, you can only have a single heavy ship assembly where you have to choose between offense ship, defense ship and bombing ship. Sure, you can build a little bit of everything of them, but
you'll be no good at anything doing that.
Yeah, basically if you build 50% destroyers and 50% frigates, you're gonna lose both to the guy who built 100% destroyers and to the guy who built 100% frigates.
Yeah. Okay, so what more do we have here? What do you think of the idea of reducing Empire fleet limits, but then giving +2 Empire fleets per station build? We actually used to have it that way, that whenever you build a station you got an extra fleet. It was too generous too early, so no. Klaus, I have a very spread out empire, lol. That's probably why I'm finding it such an issue. Great question.
Build Stargates.
Build Stargates. I had 50 fleets last alpha, so that's not a problem, says Arnold. Kitono says, will you create a feature for scouts to disable docking base in stations to prevent ships from being able to leave before an impending attack? No, but no, nothing like that is planned. Actually, there was a question just here earlier that I wanted to answer from Diablo Spawn. Yes, could you have a setting that allows you to not defend so you don't lose ships? So, one of the things we did this alpha is that we made industrials not participate in defensive combats.
Raid combats.
Raid combats. Yeah. So that you can't get them with assaults.
Yes.
Whoa. Oh, I did not know that. So they do not... Okay. Interesting. But we don't want you to be able to park your units in a station and keep them safe indefinitely. So what you have to do is that you have to figure out how long you're away from your computer and just send them to a rate that basically they'll be back when you'll be back. If you're not back for a couple of days, you can just send them on a raid that's on the other side of the map. Yeah. So that's how you figure it out. But we want we want these offensive players to be able to snipe your fleets if you're not careful. We want you to be able to make mistakes and other players to capitalize on them. So I don't think that... I played a few of these MMORTS games, and some of them have these caves which you put your fleets into, or your units into, or some specialized building that protects them. And I thought that was just kind of boring, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, it resulted in the same. It basically meant that at the end of every session, you had to go to every one of your caves and put all of your stuff in there. And then at the start of every session, you have to go to every single one of your cave and pull everything out. It was really boring micromanagement. And it's just as simply to just send them on a raid somewhere far away.
And that's more beneficial for you.
Yeah, it comes down to the same. You're basically doing an action that makes your fleet safe while you're gone.
Yeah. Okay, Kitono. Will you create a feature for scouts? Yeah, okay, I just read that, sorry. So are we out of questions? Did I miss something on YouTube? I haven't read it properly yet. Please remove the okay, so yes. I think we're about done here. I see Kitono typing.
Oh yeah, there was one, you mentioned the plat stuff, that we're making changes there.
No, that was, we actually answered that question. It was talking about buying cards directly.
Oh yeah, okay.
You guys are going to cost me my job. What do you have to say for yourselves? We say, are you a programmer? Because we might have a job for you then. No, I think you should really look at this internally. Perhaps we could have a private chat and I could go over a few pointers with you. And tell you how to spend less time at a job and more on Starborne.
You should get a job where you can play games at your job.
Exactly.
That's what I did.
Exactly. That's how you do it. I'm an accountant. That's fine. That's a fantastic job to play games at. Let's just put spreadsheet on the left sheet. I mean, Starborne is a fantastic thing. You only have to deal with it occasionally, in theory.
Yeah.
Okay, guys. I think this about wraps it up.
There's a question there from Arnold.
From Arnold. Will the research tree come back that was hinted at in the early alphas? Research trees. So something that we like and want to do, something that's probably not going to happen until after the open beta.
Yeah, what we are basically prioritizing before the research tree is something that we call commander cards, or empire cards is another name we used for it. It's basically, imagine that your empire as a whole has a few card slots, and you can get cards that go into these slots that will affect your whole empire, like boost production in all your empire and so on. And these cards would of course follow the same rules that they come through caches that you get and so on. And that will be another way to emphasize the specification of how you want to set up. So you could, for instance, have a card that improves all your bombing fleets or improves all your scout fleets or something like that, so that you could use the cards that fit your playstyle and your
role within the empire as well.
Yeah.
So Robert De Angelis asked earlier, why can't build queues be time based rather than number of buildings? So sort of like the Eve system. Actually, somebody talked to me about this on Discord, and I brought it up with both Kelly and Grettir. This is something that's interesting, and I'm pretty sure that we're going to talk about it again, but we have no answers to the actual question. Sorry, Robert. We like the idea, but we have yet to consider all angles for it. Working on a battle simulator. Fantastic. So guys, thank you so much for joining us. I hope this has been informative, and I'll see you on Discord, and my bombers will see you in game. How do I stop this? Stop streaming. Yay!